Good morning, Trump Nation. This is Deno. I just want to share a few words with you real quick. You know, many of us believe that in this last previous presidential election, God's will prevailed and God's will was done. God's will was accomplished. But I have to reemphasize this most important point. His will was accomplished through people. Now, you know it's God's will that the world be saved. Well, just, willing it didn't get the job done. He had to use somebody to get it done, and that somebody was his own son, Jesus Christ, that became flesh and dwelt amongst us. God used a man that every day chose to please God, chose to obey God, chose to do God's will. Well, I believe with all my heart it is God's will that the presidency of Donald J. Trump and the blessings it's brought upon this nation continue. Though it's been sorely attacked by our opposition, the Biden bunch, the Democrats, the New World Order, the globalists, the anti-America people, China, and all those that's been on the take by their bribery system. But Donald Trump is unbought. Donald Trump is not on the take, and they can't control him. And that's why the New World Order powers with their media and all of that have just did all they could to try to take him out, take him down. But to no prevail. God's upholding him. But let us remember, folks, God on the election day in November 2016, he himself did not go inside the voting booths and cast the vote for President Trump, for Donald Trump to be president. He used people. He moved on enough hearts, and you and I reacted to that leading of his desire, and we took our bodies inside those voting places and things and cast the vote for Donald J. Trump. And that's how God's will was done, because we chose rightly and we voted. But friends, do you know if you don't react to the good news of Jesus Christ unto salvation, God's will in your life will not be done? Because you chose wrongly. So it is. If you don't get off your rear end and go vote, and we lose this election, which we're not, but if we did, it would be because we sat back on the sideline and didn't go vote. God's not a dishonest God. He's not going to just come in here and do something illegal. He is a righteous God. That's the scepter of his throne, his integrity, his righteousness, and holiness. He expects you and I to choose you this day what you're going to do. He's not going to do it for you. It's your decision to make. It's my decision to make. And this casting of our vote, folks, even though it's God's will that people vote for Jesus Christ, not everybody does. So the devil in their lives wins, and the same with this election. God's man is clearly Donald J. Trump. President Trump. He wants to continue the blessing. But if we sit back on the sideline and don't go vote and just think, well, God's going to take care of it. Well, I want to ask you something. You know, it's God's will that the poor be fed, but if you don't go feed them, is God just raining down turkeys every day to feed them? No, you have to make the decision to obey the will of God, the love of God, to feed those people. And so it is when it comes to the vote. God's not just going to, cast the vote for us, going into the voting booths and just making it happen. That's your and my part of the deal. So let's be sure, folks, come November 2020, we show up in crowds greater than in 2016, because I'm telling you, if the Democrats can voter fraud this thing, they will do it. We have to be wise as serpents, eyes open. We have to be like hawks and be sure that they cannot take this election by some kind of corruption. And one way to do it, yes, is to have our eyes opened like hawks, but to show up in numbers that they don't have a prayer against. Trump 2020, baby, forever. God bless.